Hail fellow, welcome to Forecast. You are well met. We have put Forecast together in the spirit of endeavour. It's for you, it's forward, it's free, and cast out in the hope of a catch or two, and aside to accompany Books by the Sea, 12 little libraries strung along the coast of North Northumberland. Books by the Sea was dreamt up during lockdown, with hopeful themes of simple literacy, of reading, seeing, and thinking slowly, right here by the sea. We offer books to all, for you, from us, for free. We stamp our books with our own ex libris, so you have to take us with you. Well received by local and visiting readers as a grassroots boost, our analogue vision of tuned-in, simple, slow pleasures has struck a chord. Thankfully, alongside our readers, a number of artists, writers, and thinkers are also fully on board. And so, we've assembled some of their work, gratefully received, into the Simple Zine, a pamphlet for our times in our place. All of our libraries look alike. They're tiny, wooden, pitched-roof black huts. You'll recognise them when you see them. And if you struggle with technology and navigation, don't worry. You'll soon find the libraries just by happenstance, which is great. And then with serendipity, you might just find a wonderful new book. So here is Forecast. Enjoy the film and find our libraries along the coast. We hope that you will hunt out our wonderful contributors as well. Please consider supporting us, and please join us in thanking those that have made it all possible so far. It's been a great team effort. We are out here for you.
I take an old woman a glass of water. She has few pleasures left in life. It's cold and sharp.
Hill Spring, it says on the bottle.
She cups the tumbler as a chalice and sips from a mountain spring. As a child, she drunk in streams. She smiles at the genie inside and offers me a tasted sweet. I hand it back and we make a toast. Fingers touching around the glass. Careful not to spill one drop of magic.
Let us say no more than fits in a bottle. Go no further than the moon takes us. I look out to sea and fathom my chances of bumping into your boat to launch a thought.
Caught in your net, kelped, you may find me, this bottle you swigged, snogged dandelion and bird off the neck.
I thread myself inside one heartbeat at a time, nerves nylon, the matchstick ship of a more patient man. I won't fling my worries at you, but cast out one line, I miss you.
And love is a storm warning for some. The stories of fishermen's wives swim in my veins. I say nothing but stash glassware, screw on a lid and wait for a reply.
If you find me, whisper into a shell I pick up off the beach. I'll lay it on my pillow tonight and fancy I hear you breathing, so I may sleep.
It's a liminal place, this promontory, existing at the point where the sky meets the land, the bay meets the open sea, and with the outline of the tiny 12th century chapel walls still visible under the soft turf, the past meets the present.
Halfway along the spit, where the grasses meet the stones, it is possible to see the two castles. To the north, Bamborough, squat, solid, postcard friendly, but, whispered if within earshot of the tourist board, much of it a Victorian replica.
To the south, Dunstanburgh, leggy, wind-gnarled, broken, authentic. It was at this exact spot some 12 years ago that I proposed to my wife, a point also then, perhaps, between youth and adulthood, between the single life and the married. The sea here is ferocious, honing the knife-blade-shaped rock more and more each year. From time to time, the erosion charms ancient objects up from the ground. In recent years, the 400-year-old bones of children.
The way to access the nook is not obvious, perhaps deliberately so. Unless you're approaching by sea, as it is said St Cuthbert himself did from the Farms, a formidable journey by rowing boat, there are only two ways in. One through an opening next to a permanently locked wooden gate, the other by way of a narrow twisting alleyway behind the lime kilns at Beadnell Harbour. The kilns draw far more attention from visitors.
By climbing up on the rises, you can see long stretches in all directions, but I recommend rather you step down into the small hollow where the chapel once stood and sit or lie on the soft springy grass. Here, the wind drops away instantly, and in the sporophic warmth of a summer's day, you can almost forget your proximity to the wild North Sea, just feet away.
I have been here in all seasons, in all weathers. I nod to the occasional fisherman who stands heron-like at the water's edge and greet the walker whose spaniel goes scurrying in and out of the tussocks in search of dog treasure.
My wife is no longer able to come with me here, but sometimes when I stand halfway along, at the point where everything converges, even life and death, I meet her once again.
Twist, splice, snip. 4 sharp little pairs of scissors. 4 needles. 4 shuttles. Knitting invisible streamers in and out the harbour. Swallows. Blue-black mechanical traps sprung for the insects that fuel their long haul.
Iron oxide and rust, magnetised to and away from each other, skimming the pier. The deserted lime kilns, far and near, here and gone, deft, swift, their familiar clamour a sheer voice of summer.
In the deep stillness of evening at the burn, up from the salt marsh and abandoned farm, petrol blue they speed, glide, and fold themselves under the footbridge, exact as a pinprick in a map. Though their Beadnell-hatched young have not yet tasted the earthly African sunlight and heat. What's home?
A secret, repeating itself, a precise pendulum tick, a heartbeat, ebb and flow and breath, tide, moon and season.
Ebb and flow and breath, tide, moon and season.
In the middle of the 17th century, there were around 26,000 dovecotes in Great Britain. Just over 400 of them have survived. There is one at the southern entrance to the village of Embleton near Glebe Farm. The sunny brae dovecote stands over 20 feet high and has the exotic conical shape of a doger's hat.
It's a style of dovecote archaeologists call tun-bellied, though you wouldn't say that to its face, obviously. The whinstone ridges that run around it like hoops on a barrel were there to stop rats from getting in amongst the pigeons.
These days dovecotes are ornamental, but back when the Embleton dovecote was built, they were a vital source of meat, eggs and feathers. The latter were particularly prized. It was believed that those who slept on mattresses stuffed with pigeon down would live to a ripe old age. Though since average life expectancy in medieval England was 31, such terms are relative.
The dung gathered from dovecotes was also useful. It was used as a fertiliser, to tan leather, or you could extract saltpetre from it to make gunpowder, which came in handy for scaring all the ruddy pigeons off your vegetable plot. In medieval times, the dovecote was not only a source of food, but a status symbol, a bit like shopping at Waitroses today. The privilege of building or owning dovecotes was reserved for barons, abbots and lords of the manor.
And in the 16th century, members of this elite would have a dovecot, a rabbit warren and a carp pond to use as a larder during the bleak winter months, when regular livestock was too skinny from lack of food to be worth eating. and the peasantry were fighting over the last cabbage, and urging Sir Walter Raleigh to get on with it and discover the potato. Towards the end of her reign, Elizabeth I decided to open pigeon breeding to the free market. And now anyone could have a dovecot, or at least anyone with money and land.
The dovecot quickly became something for the trendy young blade with his ruff and rapier to swank about, the Tudor answer to a home cinema. It was said at this time that the country home of the fashionable gentleman was not complete without dovecot, a pair of butts for archery, and a bowling alley.
As a consequence of the change in the law, dovecots sprang up all over the countryside. This was by no means a development that was universally welcomed. The dovecots were stocked with hundreds of domesticated rock pigeons, which flew off each morning to gorge themselves on other people's crops. By the middle of the 17th century, the plague of pigeons was so great, John Milton feared the ravaging doves would turn England into a desert.
Farmers and smallholders rebelled, like the newcomers to the countryside who complains to the council about being woken up by crowing cockerels. Dovecote owners were ostracised by their neighbours. The value of pigeons as winter meat had tailed off too.
This was thanks to the work of Charles Turnip Townshend, an agricultural revolutionary who, as his nickname suggests, had introduced the turnip to Britain around 1700 as a means of keeping cattle, sheep and pigs eat-worthy throughout the year.
During the 18th century, more and more of Britain's dovecots fell into disuse and were demolished. If only Airbnb had been around back then. The pigeons that lived in them, a species which in the wild nested in cliffs, flew off to find somewhere new to live.
They discovered that Britain's rapidly growing towns and cities were full of the sort of rock faces they liked. The humans called them buildings. And so they settled there, and over time became the feral urban pigeon.
Like many city dwellers, these birds must sometimes pine for a little place in the country they can go to at weekends. Though the Embleton dovecot is currently empty, it still seems unlikely they'd be welcomed back.
I take an old woman a glass of water.
She has few pleasures left in life.
It's cold and sharp. Spring, it says on the bottle. She cups the tumbler as a chalice and sips from a mountain spring. As a child she drunk in streams. She smiles at the genie inside and offers me a taste. It's sweet. I hand it back and we make a toast. Fingers touching around the glass. Careful not to spill one drop of magic.
It's vast out there in front of you, North Sea slashed steely blue. Maybe the sun is stroking your cheek, holding you in its gaze, and you find a rock that is perfectly shaped, just for you. An oyster catcher trills on sand made glossy by the bright glare. Beyond the seaweed that floats alien-like, below the surface of the rippling waves, a gleaming orb appears. Just as your breath is caught on the breeze, the orb disappears, and you are left wondering what might have been.
Or perhaps the sea is grey blur, bleeding into the sky. The dunes are fierce, whipping sand like the slap of a hand, and madam grass is jabbing at your leg. Black-headed gulls hang high, and cuddy ducks bob precariously on the waves. Rain slices the air in a horizontal dance, and your cheeks are red from the sting. Gazing out across the churning froth, you can see the storm coming in as it moves across the sky like a distant murmuration.
One evening you might feel the drench of life in your bones. You walk with shoulders hunched and taste salt in the air, pressing your feet into sand that was once warm but is now moon-chilled. You follow the shimmer on the waves up into the night sky until you are magnetised, drawn to the luminous light and the vastness of it all.
And as you leave the magic for another day, you pass a tiny house made for books. Someone else has placed it there, just for you, and the gesture is a gift. You reach into your bag, fingernails clogged with sand, and thumb the pages of another world. It's someone else's turn to explore it now. Time for you to move on.